Hi, students. So now we are going to talk about the structures, or we actually say the organs, even though they're not like our organs. We still call certain parts of plants organs. We're going to talk about the organs of flowering plants. Remember, flowering plants are those angiosperms, those that grow the largest and those that have the most adaptations for life on land. So vegetative organs means the organs that are not involved in reproduction. Okay, so we talk about three vegetative organs: the roots, which is anything below ground. Okay, so here's the ground. The root system is anything below ground. And then we talk about the stems and then the leaves. So when we talk about vegetative organs, we're talking about organs that have to do with obtaining nutrition, allowing the plant to grow. Reproductive organs are like the flowers, the seeds, the fruits, and those are organs involved in plant reproduction. So we categorize angiosperms into two types. You can always look at this chart. You don't have to memorize this. It's a little tedious, but we talk about monocots and eudicots. So here I have the monocots circled. So monocots have one cotyledon. That's where mono means one, cot for cotyledon. Cotyledons are seed leaves. Cotyledons act as transfer of tissue and nutrients into the little embryo that grows in the seed until it's able to get above ground and photosynthesize on its own. So we have monocots have one cotyledon, and if you look at the cross-section of a root of a monocot, you would see that the vascular tissue, which we're going to talk more about later, that delivers water and sugars throughout the plant, occurs in a ring. In the stem, the vascular bundles are scattered, as shown here. In leaves, monocots veins, okay, which actually is the vascular tissue, those lines are parallel. So if you've ever looked at a blade of grass, those little lines along the leaf of the grass, they're parallel. That's because it's a monocot. And then the flower parts are in multiples of threes. In eudicots, which now I have hotted there, do you see here now they're pointing to two seed leaves. True U die two cotyledon. So if you open like a bean plant, right, has two parts to it, those are the cotyledons. And this is the little embryo. At the cross section of a root, the xylem and phloem makes this star-shaped, where the red is the xylem and the blue is the phloem. In the stem, the eudicots have this pattern as shown here. They're in kind of like a ring structure with the xylem, which is red, to the inside, phloem to the outside. The leaves are not veins parallel. They're kind of like they radiate outward. Like if you think of a maple leaf, which I'm covering because I'm viewing here, but behind here, the veins kind of move out. And then the flower parts are multiples of 4 or 5. If we talk about the tissues that are in these organs, like in the roots and in the stems, when we're talking about vascular tissue, we have xylem, which in a slide is always dyed red. Okay, that's important to know. Xylem transports water. So the way I have my students remember this is that X and W are pretty close in the alphabet. So xylem, A, B, C, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, Q, R, X, T, U, V, W. X is close to W. Xylem transports water from the roots up the plant in up direction, okay, through these hollow-like tubes, these tracheids that we call them, and vessel elements. If you look at them, they're kind of like straws. They just move water upward throughout the plant. It evaporates from the leaf, and that evaporation kind of pulls the water upward. Xylem is stained red on slides. And then we have phloem. Okay, Phloem transports, do you remember what sucrose is? Is sugars and other organic nutrients. A, B, C, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, P, and S, phloem and sucrose, are close in the alphabet. And so these are stained blue on slides when we look at them under the microscope. And this doesn't transport from the root up, because where do plants make their sugars? They make their sugars in their leaves, because that's what's absorbing wavelengths of sun for photosynthesis. But then those sugars are needed everywhere from growth. So those sugars usually move from the leaf down to the root so the root can grow. Also, sugars are stored in the root or into growing buds or stems of the plant. Okay, so actually these can flow in many directions. Now for the roots. This is interesting. So when you look at one of those huge trees, right? Think of a big maple tree. Underground root system will go as far as the stems above ground move outward. So that's what I wrote here. Generally, the root system is at least equivalent in size and extent to the shoot system. The shoot meaning the stems. Root hairs project, they're actually single cells that grow from the epidermis of the root, the outer cells of the root outward. And that's where most of the absorption of water is actually occurring. These tiny, tiny microscopic, they're called root hairs. That's where the water is coming in. Again, we mentioned this from the table, but if you look at a cross-section of a root, here we see that star-shaped. Red, so what is red? Xylem or phloem? Red is xylem. What does xylem transport? Water. And then the phloem is kind of in between the star arms. The phloem is blue and transports the food. Think phloem, food, like sugar is food. All right, in monocots, so you have the root system, and it's in like this cylinder, this circle shaped. In herbaceous stems, herbaceous means there's no woody material, so like no hard, like wood tree. Like these are more plants that are not tall, right? Don't have any what we call wood. We call those herbaceous plants. Mature non-woody stems exhibit only primary growth in length, not growth in width. So outside they have that waxy cuticle that all plants have. Stems have either those vascular bundles that are scattered, like in monocots, or vascular bundles that are in a ring shaped, like eudicots. Now, plants that are woody, right? So woody plants, now the growth occurs outward, and this is something that we're going to discuss in lab, right? But you get not only primary growth, which is growth in length, but now you're also getting growth in width, which is secondary growth. So woody plants, look at what it says here, are found in eudicots, but not monocots. So monocots are non-woody as a group. Eudicots are the ones that can have secondary growth. Wood, what we actually call the wood, is secondary xylem. So xylem that keeps, for the plant to get larger, the xylem cells will keep growing. All right, and lastly, we have our leaves, right? So our leaves have an upper and lower epidermis layer of cells right here, and then they have waxy cuticle, right, to prevent evaporative loss of the water. And what I want to focus on is that in the lower epidermis, this area right here, these cells that make a little opening into the leaf, those are called stomata, and that's where gas exchange happens. So for plants, they use carbon dioxide in photosynthesis, so the carbon dioxide moves in through the stomata, and they produce oxygen, which comes out. And that happens in the stomata. And sometimes when there's really hot, dry environments, the stomata can close because water through evaporation is also going to be lost through the stomata. So plants have a way of regulating the stomata and preventing water loss, but then they also have to compromise photosynthesis because they can't do gas exchange. And why is it important that it's happening at the leaf? Is because these cells, right, of the leaves, and it's the mesophyll, which we break into the palisade and the spongy mesophyll, is where those organs, the organelle, the chloroplast is found, and that's where photosynthesis is happening. All right. Okay, in summary, we've talked about plants having the root system, the shoot system, and in these roots and shoots we have two types of vascular tissue, xylem and phloem. Xylem is usually colored in red and it moves water and nutrients. Phloem is in blue and that moves sugars and other organic molecules. The organs of a plant are the roots, the stems, and the leaves. Take care, everyone.